Hello, welcome to another lecture of CAT 2018 discussions. As you know, the agenda of these lectures are simple. We are taking topic wise some questions of CAT that appeared in 2018 CAT and we are discussing them, right. So, what is today's agenda? Today's agenda is to solve CAT 2018 Parajumble questions. So, we will take questions of Parajumble and solve them. And what would happen due to that will be in CAT. You know that the Parajumble questions come without options. So, when they come without options, how to be sure with our answer when there are no options. So, Parajumble with option and without option becomes a little different, because with options we have the advantage of looking at the options and eliminate those which cannot be the answer, and thereby arrive to an answer which is closest to what we were thinking about. So, even if you can find out one pair or one triplet of that is consistent, then it would be enough, but or it serves to be enough. But in questions where there are no options, what happens is that we will have to be very sure about what will be the exact order of all the sentences. So, just finding out one mandatory pair or one mandatory triplet is not going to solve the case for you. It is not going to make your day, right. So, that is the second thing on our agenda. And how would we do it? What would be the methodology? The methodology would be simple. We will read each set of jumbled sentences and answer. So, there will be a set of 4 sentences which have been jumbled of a paragraph which have been jumbled, and we will have to find out the right order of it, right. So, sentence rearrangement or parajumble, that is what we say these questions to be, paragraph jumbled or sentence rearrangement. So, let us see what we are taking today, which slot we are taking today. Today we will take 4 questions. There will be 4 questions that we will be taking from slot 2. Parajumble questions, 4 questions from slot 2. In each one of these slots, as you know that slot in CAT we have exam in 2 different slots. Slot 1 is the morning slot, slot 2 is the afternoon slot. In the afternoon slot, these were the questions that came that we are going to discuss. There were 4 Parajumble questions in that slot, and we will be doing all those 4 questions, okay, right. So, that is the idea of today's class. So, let us start. I will be giving you one question or one set of the Parajumble, and I will be also mentioning the time that you should give ideally to solve that question. You can pause the lecture for that time and solve the question, and resume the lecture while I will be discussing the solution and the process by which we arrive to that solution, okay, right. Chalo, let us start off. The first question is on your screen now. You might take 1 minute, 30 seconds to 2 minutes, whatever time you take. Pause the lecture and solve this question. Done? Okay, let us see. Let us see how we will solve this question. We will come to the answer later on. Let us look at the process, because once you get the answer, your mind starts working in that way. So, let us solve it and arrive to that solution, okay. Now, the first sentence, obviously you will have to read from the first till fourth. It was his taxpayers who had to shell, it was his taxpayer, it, his, two pronoun, who had to shell out as much as this much to employees of failed companies. Now, this is that they are referring to someone here, they are referring to some event in here. Now, it is very highly unlikely that this would be the first sentence. So, because if you have to start, you will have to start somewhere, right. So, what can be possible first sentence is a right way to start. So, this cannot be a possible first sentence. So, we will keep it in our mind, but let us move on. Companies in many countries routinely engage in such activities. Now, what is this such? Again, a reference to something that has been already referred to. Now, has it been referred to in one? No. Activities, okay, they are shelling out some money, but such activities, this particularly any activities has been referred to, we do not see as such, right. So, 2 is again cannot be the first sentence, and 1 and 2 are not related in a way that 2 would come after 1, right. So, we have nothing as of now. So, we will have to move on to the statement 3. Deliberate and systematic liquidation of a company to avoid liabilities and then restarting the business is called phoenixing. Now, this is a definition. This is a definition that is coming. So, this is the up till now this is the most general statement, right, and between 3 to 1, 3 definitely can be a statement with which we can start, but we do not know, we have not read 4, so we cannot decide, but definitely we can see say for sure that 3 would come before 2 and 1. What would be the order of 2 and 1? We will have to decide. Also, you can look at, if you look at this 2, such activities may refer to this deliberate and systematic liquidation of a company to avoid liabilities. So, these can be such activities. Okay. So, we will keep it this way. We will read the 4th one. The Australian Minister for Revenue and Services discovered in an audit that phoenixing, so we are referring to phoenixing, so therefore phoenixing has to be defined first. So, hence 3 has to be the first sentence, had caused the Australian economy between 2.9 to 5.1 billion last year. Now, here there is the first mention of a person. So, this his has to be this. So, we can say for sure that 4 1 is a mandatory pair. 4 has to come before 1, then only 1 can refer as his to Australian minister, right. Now, the placement of 2. Now, 2 into such activities can only now refer to 3 because we have read everything. Such activities cannot refer to anyone but what has been mentioned in option 3, right. And then we are moving, there is another way that we are talking about general phoenixing here, then we are moving on to a little more specific where we are talking about companies, what do they do in countries while they do phoenixing, then about a particular company, more specific and extension of that specific example, right. So, we know now that 2 has to follow 3 and then 4 1 pair would come. So, 3 2 4 1 is our answer. So, this was one of the questions of this year CAT 2018 slot 2, and this was easy. If you look at this by the standards of any exam, this was not a very difficult question. So, if you have done your Parajumbles well, if you have done, you understand the concepts of Parajumble and you are able to apply the concepts of Parajumble, concepts of identifying introductory statements, mandatory pairs and redundancy. If you know those things, you would be able to do this question very easily, and within the stipulated time, 1 minute 30 seconds, you will be done with it. Okay, right? So, that was the first question. Let's move on to the second question of the day. Second question on your screen, you can pause the lecture and do the question. Done? Okay, let's move on and see what would be the right order in here and see whether you have done it correctly or not. Self-management is thus defined. Now, when you say thus defined, so there has to be something. Thus is in addition to something. So, is thus defined, one cannot be the first sentence at all. But still, we will read the sentence so that we have an identification of what it is talking about. Is thus defined as the individual's ability to manage the symptoms, treatment, physical and psychosocial consequences and lifestyle changes inherent in living with a chronic condition. So, they are talking about when people stay in very bad condition, how do they manage themselves. So, that's how they are defining self-management. Okay, we will keep that in mind. Move on. Most people with progressive diseases like dementia prefer to have control over their own lives and healthcare for as long as possible. Now, this seems to be a pretty general statement, right? So, if this is a pretty general statement, this might be one of the starters. So, we will keep the option open. 2 has to be one of the starters. We know 1 cannot be a starter, but 2 can definitely be a starter. So, it's more or less introducing the problem. So, what they are going to talk about, right? So, let's move on to 3. Having control means, among other things, that patients themselves perform self-management activities. So, this having control means it's defining what is having control. So, having control has been introduced into, so this 3 is following it up by defining what having control means. So this is sure that 3 would follow 2, so 2, 3 is a mandatory pair, right? So whether 2 would be the first sentence or not, we'll see, but 2, 3 is a mandatory pair, that's for sure. We'll read the fourth one. Supporting people in decisions and actions that promote self-management is called self-management support. Okay, tell me, self-management, we'll define self-management first and then you'll talk about self-management support. So definitely 4 has to follow 1, it cannot come before 1 and it cannot definitely come before 2 and 3. Why? Because in 3 we are introducing the term self-management activities, themselves perform self-management activities. So we have talked about self-management, now we are defining self-management in 1 and then we are extending by giving self-management support. So 2, 3 and then we are topping it up with 1 and then 4. So your answer becomes 2, 3, 1, 4. Again, an easy question, not a very difficult one, and again it's a cat question, and you see you would have done it very easily within 1 minute 30 seconds. If you have the understanding of the concepts, you can do it very easily within 1 minute 30 seconds, 2 minutes and get it correct. Also, you know that with the non-option ones, these were all non-option questions, you don't have any negative. So obviously you have that scope of taking a risk. But you know, without that also, you even if there was a risk, you could have done these questions correct, the first and the second one. Okay, let's now move on to the next question. The next question is on your screen now. Do it within the stipulated time. Is it done? Okay, chalo, let's do this question. Now this question was a difficult one. As a matter of fact, out of all the 4 questions, this was one of the best ones in terms of the difficulty level. Now, what does it say? Let's start one by one with the first one. They would rather do virtuous side projects. So there is a they, which we don't know who is it. So it cannot be the first one. And there is also a rather. So rather comes as an addition, as a contradiction to something else. So therefore, this cannot be the first sentence for sure, but we'll read it nonetheless so that we know that how to place or where to place it. They would rather do virtuous side projects assiduously as long as these would not compel them into doing their day jobs more honorably or reduce the profit margins. Okay, so they're talking about some people who would not do their jobs honorably, rather they would do some side projects sincerely. Second, they would fund $1 million of buzzwordy program. Again a they. Who is this they? We'll have to find out this they, but we'll read it anyways. They would fund $1 million of buzzwordy programs rather than fundamentally question the rules of their game or alter their own behavior to reduce the harm of existing distorted, inefficient, unfair rules. So, this is something that they would do. Again, they would fund $1 million of programs that can be sold rather than alter their own behavior. Like the dieter who would rather do anything to lose weight than actually eat less, the business elite would save the world through social impact investing and philanthrocapitalism. Now, this definitely seems to be the sentence where they are introducing the concept, the idea, what are they talking about, of whom are they talking about, isn't it? So then, when we look at this, like the dieter who would rather do anything to lose weight, who are we talking about? We are talking about the business elite. Here are the business elite who would save the world through social impact investing and philanthrocapitalism, by investing in social projects, by investing in those virtuous side projects, maybe, right, that has been referred to in 1 and 2 buzzwordy programs. So that's had been referred to later also. So this has to be something which would be starting off, right, but still we'll have to read 4 to see whether it is the starting. Doing the right thing and moving away from their win-win mentality, again their win-win mentality, so obviously it's not the first one, 3 is the first one, would involve real sacrifice. Instead, it is easier to focus on their pet projects and initiative. See, they are talking about pet projects and initiative, and where that they are talking about projects again, their virtuous side projects. So they talked about introduced pet projects here and virtuous side projects. They are adding to it by saying rather they would do virtuous side projects. So this makes a link. Obviously the link is you might say that, as I am saying, that they have talked about pet projects here. So 4 would come first and then 1. There might be a doubt in your mind, why not 1 and 4? We will talk about the placement of 2 in a moment, but let us talk about why not 1 and 4. Now first of all, if you look at this particular sentence, now this is a general statement talking about how the capitalist or the businessman would be investing in social projects rather than rather than doing anything serious, right? So what is that serious stuff comes on later on in the statement 2 and the statement 1. But if you look at it, the 4th sentence again talks about doing the right thing and moving away from their win-win mentality. So they have this win-win mentality would involve real sacrifice. Instead, it is easier to focus on their pet projects and initiatives. So it's explaining the nature of these business people, business elite, right? So 4 is explaining it, and to just add steam to it, it's giving example in the or extending that thought in 1. So 1 is an extension of the thought, and how would we know that it is an extension of the thought? Rather is one indicator, and again virtuous side projects. It's adding on to their side projects wala idea, right? So therefore 4-1. Now 2. They would fund a million of buzzwordy programs rather than fundamentally question the rules of their game or alter their own behavior to reduce the harm of the existing distorted, inefficient inefficient and unfair rules. Okay, so this is what they are doing. Then all things which are not right, which are wrong. Okay, so rather than doing the right thing, they would fund a million of buzzwordy programs. So if you look at this, this was the starting. A dieter would not diet, would not eat less. He would rather do anything. So the example of it is this one. So they have drawn an analogy in the third sentence or the first statement, first sentence, which is the first sentence of our paragraph, that business elite are like dieter. But here it was incomplete. They have only talked about what they do. They would do save the world through social impact. But if you look at it, this explains what they would not do and what they would do. So 3-2 becomes a mandatory pair. So 3-2-4-1 makes your day. Alright, so that's one. So you could have also found out that 2-4-1 is a mandatory triplet. That also you could have found out. Okay. Sure. So that's how, there are multiple ways of doing it. There is no one way of doing it. So please don't go by only one way of doing it. Obviously, if you are able to find out an indicator of linkages, if you are able to find out a mandatory pair, if you are able to find out a mandatory triplet from hints that have been that is there lying to be picked up, obviously you should go forward, listen to your practiced insights and do so. Okay. The last question now, question number 4. Take your time and do this question. Now, this is the question. Now here, what are you sure of? This is one question where I have a different opinion than the official solution, and there are reasons, and I'll talk about those reasons also. But I'll give you the official solution first. But before I give you the official solution, let me tell you what I am sure about in this. Here, the most general statement is obviously the most general statement here is which one? If you look at all these statements in the era of smart world, however, basic income. Now, this is however, this cannot be the first sentence. So this is in addition to something. So it's a smart world. We are talking about smart world where universal basic income is an ineffective instrument. Okay. In the era of industrial revolution, what trade unions, growth of trade unions help families cope with pressures and mechanized work. Okay, so this is about industrial revolution which happened earlier, and this is in today's world. So however, obviously it says that one would come after 2, whether exactly after 2 or not, we will see in a moment. Growing inequality could be matched by a creeping authoritarianism that is bolstered by technology that is increasingly able to peer into the deepest vestiges of our life. Now this is for sure that 3 has to come after 1, because it's talking about the modern times, technology and the world which has been fractured by technology or developed by technology. So 3 would come after it, because this is talking about another era of industrial revolution. This is talking about today's era or technology driven era, right? So 3 would come after 1, whether exactly after 1 we will see. Now new institutions emerge which recognize ways in which workers could contribute and benefit by economic growth rather than if their jobs would are automated. So what they are saying here is, it is given that their jobs will be automated. Now new institutions emerge is simple present, that means it's in a process of happening, which understands this, and they are trying to find out ways in which workers can contribute other than what they are doing currently. So 4 is something which is relevant to current context, right? But it is not in sync with, it cannot come in between 2 and 1 and 3. So now we are sure that 2, 1, 3 is mandatory triplet. Okay, so 2, 1, 3 is mandatory triplet, that's for sure. Now what is the official solution? And 4 according to me is in simple present, which is showing what is going to happen or what is happening in present, right? So the official answer is 4, 2, 1, 3. They have placed 4 at the starting, okay, because see 2, 1, 3 is a mandatory pair, so 4 has only 2 places to be, either at first or at end. Okay, the official solution say at the first, at the starting. Now this to me did not make a lot of sense, so I was not being able to find out why is it that I am feeling that 4 should be at the end, because the tense structure also is supporting that, because it's in simple present and it's talking about now today's institutions. So therefore it makes sense that this should be at the end, because we're talking about today's institutions in 2 and 1 and 3, and in 2 we are talking about institutions of earlier age, of industrial revolution. So I started hunting from where this article has been taken, and you might have obviously got now that my answer is 2, 1, 3, 4. But so I started hunting, and then I found this. This is New Statesman 2018 September issue. You can just go on and find it out, Google it out. This is a passage which was is an article, right, where this was this. So if you look at this article, look at this part. In the industrial revolution, the abolition of child labor, this help cope with the pressure of mechanized work. This is our 2. This is our 2, right? Now look at this. Clearly new ideas and institutions will need to emerge to recognize ways in which workers contribute. Are you getting it? They have changed this sentence. Here the sentence was clearly new ideas will need to emerge. It's an expectation setting. So earlier this had happened. Trade unions helped people to get out of depression, but nowadays new ideas need to be there. Okay, so this was an indicator of what is to come or what should come. Now they have changed this sentence. They have changed this sentence to what? See, new institutions emerge which recognize ways. So this is already happening. So the moment they have changed this sentence, then automatically it cannot be now placed in the middle. Therefore I said between 2, 1, 3 it cannot be placed. Originally it was placed in the middle after 2, because it was will need to emerge. It was a future expectation setting, right? After that, in an era of smart policies, UBI would not work and growing inequality. These are all problems. These are all problem setting, right? Now they have changed this to a present tense sentence. So therefore, my logic says that it cannot come at the first, because at the if it comes at the starting, it will mean that this is happening. Earlier this used to happen, and this would not do in the present time. So there is no flow. There is no flow. So according to me, the answer would be 2, 1, 3, 4, and I gave you the reason behind it. So according to me, because they have changed the original sentence from there where they have taken the paragraph where they have taken, obviously now it's open to debate, open to every kind of discussion. So we cannot say for we cannot argue with what logic they have given it, but my logic is what I have told you, that because it is in simple present, that means it's already happening. So I have talked about problems that happens in in the present context, and then I am talking about what should happen now, and later on I will talk about how it should happen. So that's my flow. This happened earlier during Industrial Revolution. These are the problems that we face today, and therefore this should happen. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, so how much did you score? Obviously this was a little tricky, because one question, the last one, was ambiguous in nature, but even if you have 2, 1, 3, 4, you should mark yourself correct, because the logic is not it's flawless. In the logic is flawless. The way we did it was having no error, right? And I showed you the original article too. So if you had done 2, 1, 3, 4, get 1 marks for it. A good score in this would be greater than equal to 2. So if you have got 2, it's good score. The first 2 you should have got correct. None of them you should have got wrong, right? The third one was tricky. You might have got it wrong. And the fourth one, either one would have been correct for you. So 3 is something that you could have got, and 2 very easily you should have got rather. Time 6 to 8 minutes is what you should have taken. So that's the ideal time that you should take for Parajumble. Whether you can do it or not do it doesn't matter much, right? 8 minutes is something that you should take at the max. Okay, so that will be all for today. In the next class we will take another set of 4 to 5 questions from CAT 2018. Hope you enjoyed this lecture and you are enjoying this series. Thank you very much and all the best.